Greetings viewers, if you click the video link, you're here to learn how to install the Midwest Industries rail onto your Beretta 1301 shotgun. As you can see, I've got everything set up in front of me here. We've got the rail. I did take it out of the package. I was looking at it. I'm really a big fan of Midwest Industries. If you're not familiar with them, they make really great stuff. I have a lot of their rails on many guns. We've got our accessory pack here. It does come with a rail section. It's got a little collar here and some screws that we're going to need for the installation. But before we can get to that, we need to disassemble the shotgun and get it to a point where we can put that on there. So I will say that the written instructions that come with this thing are pretty atrocious. If you have no idea what you're doing, this is not going to be very helpful. So I'm going to assume that's why you came to this video. So let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to need is a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench. We're going to take this front sling attachment point off. There are two screws on this thing. One is accessed on this side. You have to flip it over, and then the head for the other one is on the opposite side. So we're going to be rotating back and forth undoing those. You do not need to take them all the way out. If you get them loose enough that this thing's wobbling around, you should be able to just slide it off the front of the shotgun. If it's not going, you may need to loosen them up just a little bit more. But the whole assembly should slide off. Just make sure you keep everything together and nothing falls out. You don't lose these parts because you're going to need that to put it back on. So the next step is going to be to take this magazine tube off. Now keep in mind, what yours is going to disassemble a little bit differently than mine. This little cap I did not reinstall because it is somehow preventing me from loading 7 rounds in the tube, so this may disassemble a little bit differently than yours. But either way, right now, all we need to do is we need to grab this cap and we're going to turn it to the left and unscrew it to remove it. So this is a 2-piece system here, so you're going to spin this. You're going to hear stuff clicking. That's okay. You're not breaking anything. It's supposed to do that. It ratchets on. So I have to be careful when I remove this because it is under spring tension right now. After spinning it for a little bit, it will stop ratcheting. I'm just going to keep spinning until the cap comes off. All right, and as you saw, my magazine tube spring shot out because if your shotgun is still in its stock configuration, this cap will be over that and locked into place. I'm going to go ahead and remove this so I can show you what's happening here. So there is a, let's take that second piece off. There is a hole in the end of the threads here that's notched for this plastic tab. And this will normally be sitting in there holding that spring in, so you can take those 2 cap pieces off without an issue. Follower wants to come out. So all you'll have to do, if yours has this installed still, is you'll just press down on that tab until it comes out of that little pocket. And then again, this is going to be what's under spring tension, and that spring is going to try and shoot out. So be careful getting that out of there. If you try and stop it with your hand and it hits and bends, you could bend or break the spring, so be careful doing that. So now all we need to do is we're just going to grab the stock forend on here and we're going to slide it forward. The whole thing is going to come off as one unit. There is a plastic piece here that we are going to remove. I would just grab under both wings at the top and just slide it down towards the bottom, and that will come off. So now when we take a look at this rail, you can see we've got notches here that correspond with these notches. This rail sticks out a little bit farther, so it does cover more surface area on the front of the gun. So we're going to break into the little pack here. I'm going to leave the rail section in there. All I'm taking out is this collar. There's some thread locking material and some screws. So this is the part where the instructions are not very clear, and if you're not familiar with what you're looking at or what you're doing, it is going to be a little bit tough to understand what's going on. So that ratcheting clicking noise we heard was this little detent here rattling, and we need to take this piece off, and then we are going to transfer it to the new rail system. All right, so now that this is out, I'm going to show you what's going on in there. So while this is inserted inside of here, this O-ring is wrapped around it just like that. It's on the end here. So you need to take this O-ring off first. Whatever tool you're using to try and get it out of there, I recommend you be very careful so you don't chew this thing up. I just kind of gently got up underneath it and was able to peel it away using my little hemostats here. You can use a flat screwdriver. And again, just kind of motivate it to come out, go all the way around until you can get this to come off. Then, as you can see, we've got these little spring-loaded tabs that have to be depressed in order to let this piece slide out. So you'll have to get your flat screwdriver in there and do some wiggling and finagling because there's not a whole lot of room to work in here. So you'll have to get in wherever you can to get those to let go. And then again, this will just pop out the front. So we are going to reuse this on the new clamp piece. So as we look at this thing, you'll notice that the top is open, and you'll also notice that where this metal detent is, it has the corresponding piece that will just slide. It will slide just like that. You should hear it snap. This thing will fit flush on there. We then need to apply our O-ring so that it sits down there just like that. It doesn't matter which way is front or back on the little metal piece that came with the rail, as long as you get it in there and it looks like this. So the piece that we just assembled, when that goes on, it's going to butt up against here just like the stock one did, and then our magazine tube extension piece is going to ratchet down on top of it. We need to get the whole rail system slid on. Probably the easiest way to do this, let's prop this up a little bit so we can access it. So since we're not using the forend, we'll put it to use. So there are 3 screw holes towards the front of the rail. There's one here, one on the bottom, and one on the opposite side. Conveniently enough, there's 3 areas for screws on that new collar. Keeping the metal detent portion pointed forward, I'm going to set this inside the rail here, close to where it would go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slide this whole rail assembly on over the front of the gun. All right, so the rail is going to slide all the way back until it interfaces with the receiver. Remember those 2 little tabs that are sticking out? You may have to wiggle it just a little bit, but it should fit flush up against the receiver. Your collar may or may not have made its way all the way down, but basically all we have to do is just kind of wiggle the rail a little bit until this will slide down until the point where it stops. And those screw holes line up, and then we are going to screw this thing together so it holds that rail in place. All right, so my recommendation for the next part would be to go ahead and get your magazine tube and your mag extension assembled so that it has that back pressure on here, so when we tighten it down, we know everything's in place where it's supposed to be. So the first thing we're going to do is put our follower back in the tube, make sure the hollow end goes towards the front because that's where the spring is going to sit. Now, again, this is going to be different for you versus me. Remember this plastic piece. If you're having issues fitting all 7 rounds in your tube, supposedly removing this helps alleviate that. So if that's an issue you're having, you can leave this out. Otherwise, if you are going to reinstall it, all you're going to do is put this over the end of the spring, paying attention to that notched hole here in this little tab, and you're going to gently press it all the way back in until that tab engages through the hole there. Since I am not doing that, I'm not going to demonstrate it, but it is pretty self-explanatory how that works. So I'm going to take my tube extension here. The one with the ridges is going to go towards the back. The one with the little plastic nubs is going to face forward. And then we're going to take the cap, and I'm going to capture my spring with this. And this is the same procedure you would use with that little cap. Just gently make sure the spring goes in straight. It doesn't try and break loose and pop out of the side on you. Once you get it to the gun, so I'm going to start spinning this on. I hear the spring rotating in there. You will as well if you were doing it this way. So we're just going to keep spinning until it gets tight. You'll hear it start to ratchet once it gets far enough down. We know we installed that right at least. All right, so once that's down on there, we need to make sure that your screw holes are lined up with the holes in the rail. So you should be able to look straight down for all 3 of them and see that the threads are lined up from that collar. This is where we are going to install those screws that they gave us. You're going to need a 1/8 inch Allen wrench here for this. So you're going to put your favorite thread locking material on the little screws that they give you. And then you're going to go ahead and apply one to each of those 3 holes there. You can use the stuff that came with it. I'm not going to use that. I just use regular Loctite. So do not tighten them all the way down until you have them all installed. That way, if you need to finagle it a little bit, you'll have access to all 3 screw holes. So we're just going to put them in far enough, but not all the way. If you have an inch-pound torque wrench, the instructions say to torque them evenly to 30 inch-pounds, so you can do that. If you don't have one, just tighten them down hand tight without trying to snap the bolts or strip them. So we're just going to get them all nice and tight. Now that, again, they're all 3 in. Once you have all 3 of the screws locked down, whether you've got them down to 30 inch-pounds or again, you just have them hand tight, this is what it's going to look like. The only thing you may not like is the fact that you can now see the whole gas system underneath the rail here. I have a feeling there's also going to be some powder that's going to end up coming out of here somewhere that you would not normally get because it would all be contained inside of the stock handguard. So we'll see what happens with that. I do plan on putting some rail covers and a light on here. So potentially that may not be an issue. But anyway, that's how you get this thing installed on here. Go ahead and remove any extra thread locking material that may have leaked out anywhere. And we're going to go ahead and put our sling attachment back on. Very simple, easy to do. Again, it doesn't matter which side is which. They're both identical. We're just going to feed this over the barrel and magazine tube. There is a kind of a notched area, if you will, on the magazine tube where it kind of dips down a little bit. That's where this is going to go. So we just rotate back and forth with our Allen wrench that we use to take it off. We're going to tighten one side just a little bit, flip it over, and tighten down that side. So this piece is plastic. As with everything else, we are not trying to crush it or break it. So just get it down to a point where it's sufficiently hand tight, and we're going to leave it at that. And there you go. Anyway, our handguard's installed now. Hopefully you found this video useful. If I did not cover something you have questions about or you're having some trouble, please feel free to drop me a comment down below. I'll do my best to be able to help you with either a text answer or if I need to make a follow-up video or short to help correct the problem that you are having, I will be glad to do so. Anyway, I've taken up enough of your time, so hopefully you found the video useful. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.